I sat down on the white-painted wooden chair facing my parents, Charles and Mary, and my two younger twin brothers, Ethan and Sam, in the familiar kitchen I once considered home, deep in a New Jersey suburb. The aroma of pot roast and garlic bread filled the air, bringing back a flood of childhood memories. But tonight, something felt off, a subtle tension hanging in the air despite the cozy setting. Ethan and Sam leaned back in their chairs, their expressions almost triumphant, sharing a quick glance before my mother spoke, her voice carefully composed. "Olivia, we want to talk to you about an important decision." My father continued, his tone steady but lacking its usual warmth. "We've finalized our will, and we want you to hear it from us now, so there's no confusion later." Ethan leaned back further, crossing his arms over his chest, a smug smirk forming on his lips. "To put it simply," he interjected, "everything goes to us." I froze, my mind struggling to process his words. "What?" I managed to say, barely a whisper. Sam repeated it, his tone light, almost dismissive, as if delivering an unimportant announcement. "Yeah, Mom and Dad are leaving this house, the beach condo, and all their assets to us. You get nothing." The room fell silent, the casual cruelty of the announcement hitting me like a physical blow. You won't believe how my family justified this, or what happened next. If you've ever faced unexpected betrayal from those closest to you, subscribe to the Lifestories1 YouTube channel for more powerful stories of resilience. The room fell into a heavy silence after Sam's casual pronouncement. I sat frozen, the comforting aroma of pot roast now feeling distant and alien, replaced by a cold wave of disbelief. My mind struggled to catch up, trying to compute the words I had just heard. "You get nothing." I turned to my mother, Mary, hoping, praying, that she would deny it, laugh it off as a misunderstanding or a poor joke. But she only met my gaze with a small, firm nod, clutching the napkin in her lap as if for reassurance. "We think this is for the best," she said, her voice carefully composed, a tone I recognized as the one she used when she wanted to close off discussion. "You have a stable career, a solid income, but Ethan and Sam are still finding their way. They need more support." I turned to my father, Charles, searching his face for some sign of hesitation, some flicker of recognition of the unfairness, but he simply stared down at his glass of water, steadfastly avoiding my gaze. He offered no explanation, no word of comfort or apology. It was in that silence, in that averted look, that the initial shock gave way to a surge of pain, quickly followed by a rising, hot anger. More support? The words felt like a cruel mockery. For over a decade, I had been their primary source of support, not just for my brothers, but for my parents too. I had done everything for them. I had paid a large portion of their mortgage month after month, silently contributing to the very house they were now saying wasn't mine in any way. I had covered countless medical bills that their insurance didn't fully handle, dipped into my savings without question whenever an unexpected expense arose. I had helped Ethan and Sam multiple times when they couldn't manage their own finances, covering tuition payments when Ethan switched majors for the third time, sending Lucas money when he wanted a new car to boost his social media image, bailing them out of debt they'd accumulated through poor choices. I had sacrificed vacations, worked overtime, lived frugally while sending significant amounts of my hard-earned money back home, believing I was investing in my family, in a shared future, in their well-being. And now, this was how they repaid me? So, after everything I've done, my voice wavered despite my desperate efforts to keep it steady, you've decided I don't deserve anything? The deep hurt behind my words was impossible to hide. My mother sighed, a sound of weary disappointment, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "Olivia," she said, her eyes filled with that familiar look. "You always make everything about money." I clenched my hands tightly under the table, the sharp, bitter sting of betrayal piercing through me. "It's not about money," I retorted, trying to keep my voice calm, level, but the emotion was bubbling up uncontrollably. "It's about fairness, about how I've always been there, every single time you needed me. Whenever there was a problem, a bill, a crisis, I stepped up. But now, just because I'm independent, because I don't rely on you for a handout, because I've built my own life, I have no value to this family. My years of support mean nothing because I don't need this inheritance? Ethan let out a short, sharp laugh from across the table, shaking his head with a smug disbelief. "You're being dramatic, Olivia," he sneered. "No one forced you to help. You just liked playing the martyr." Sam chuckled too, amusement flickering in his eyes as he leaned back even further. "Yeah," he added, his voice laced with cruel irony. "Maybe you thought if you threw enough money at us, Mom and Dad would finally love you as much as they love us." His words hit me like a physical blow, a slap across the face delivered with chilling precision. I turned back to my parents, my gaze pleading, waiting for them to correct him, to reprimand their sons for such a cruel, baseless accusation. I waited for them to say, "No, that's not true, Olivia. We love you." But nothing came. They stayed silent, both looking away now, avoiding my eyes. And in that silence, I understood everything. Ethan and Sam's words were not just cruel taunts. They were an articulation of a truth I had perhaps subconsciously known, but never allowed myself to believe. My parents' silence confirmed it. My value had been entirely transactional. My efforts to help, my financial support, in their eyes, maybe it was just me trying to buy something that was freely given to my brothers. The pain swelling in my throat was almost unbearable. I swallowed hard, taking a deep, shaky breath, steadying myself. All right. If that was their truth, their decision, then I had one of my own. The time for trying to earn their love was over. The silence that followed Sam's cruel words and my parents' complicit non-response stretched, thick and suffocating. In that moment, the last vestiges of hope I had clung to for years, the hope that they truly saw and appreciated me, beyond my ability to provide, shattered. The pain was intense, a sharp, visceral ache in my chest, but beneath it, something else was hardening. A cold, steely resolve. I swallowed hard, forcing down the swell of emotion, taking a deep, steadying breath. My voice, when I spoke, was quiet but even, stripped of the earlier waver. "All right," I said, my gaze sweeping over their faces, still frozen in their various degrees of discomfort and smugness. "If that's your decision, then I have one of my own." Ethan raised an eyebrow, a flicker of curiosity replacing the smugness. "Oh?" he drawled. "And what's that?" I didn't answer him directly. Instead, I pushed my chair back from the table with a soft scrape and stood up. My heart was pounding, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs, but my movements were deliberate. I turned away from the dinner table, leaving behind the scent of pot roast and garlic bread that now felt empty and meaningless, tainted by the raw betrayal I had just experienced. I walked out of the familiar kitchen, through the hallway, towards the front door. As I walked, I half expected one of them to call my name, to stop me, to say something, anything, to bridge the chasm that had just opened between us. But nothing came. No one moved. No one spoke. Their silence followed me, a chilling confirmation that my departure, my pain, meant less to them than maintaining their decision. I stepped out of the house I had grown up in, the place filled with memories of childhood security, that now felt like a distant, faded dream. The front door clicked shut behind me, with a quiet finality that echoed the irreversible change that had just occurred. The warmth of family dinners, the illusion of unconditional love, it had all long faded, replaced by the stark reality of transactional relationships. The night air was crisp against my skin, but I felt a burning heat rise to my temples, fueled by the suppressed emotions. Driving home, I didn't turn on the radio. I needed the silence, the quiet space to process the devastating truth. Why was I even surprised? Hadn't I always known, on some level, that in their eyes I was nothing more than their financial safety net, the reliable resource they could tap into whenever needed? Back in the solitude of my apartment, I collapsed onto the couch, my hands trembling as I unlocked my phone. The conversation replayed in my head, every word, every look, cutting deeper than the last. Ethan and Sam were getting everything. The house, the condo, the assets accumulated over decades, and me, the one who had paid a significant portion of the mortgage on that very house, who had covered countless medical bills, who had bailed Ethan and Sam out of debt multiple times, who had funded Ethan's changing college majors, and Sam's attempts to project a certain image for his social media aspirations. I was left with nothing. I opened my banking app, the numbers staring back at me like a brutal, unwavering reminder of the dependency they had placed on me. There it was, the $1,900 automatic transfer scheduled each month to my parents to cover their mortgage and expenses. Below that, the fluctuating amounts, sometimes $600, sometimes $1,200, I sent to Ethan and Sam whenever they called complaining about money problems, conveniently forgetting the income they did have or the poor choices they had made. My parents had said I was successful and didn't need help, using it to justify cutting me out of the will. But what would actually happen to them without my consistent financial support? Could they even keep their home? My finger hovered over the automatic transfer section. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, a frantic rhythm in the quiet apartment. For years, I had accepted this burden, rationalizing it as my responsibility as the older, more capable sibling, the daughter who helped her parents. But this was their choice. They had made it abundantly clear tonight that they didn't need me in a way that warranted inclusion in their legacy. My contributions, my support, hadn't earned me a place in their will, hadn't earned me their love or respect beyond my monetary value. No one was forcing me to continue. The thought was both terrifying and liberating. I took a breath, held it for a second, then two. Then, decisively, I pressed cancel. A notification popped up. Recurring payments successfully stopped. A complex wave of emotion crashed over me. The familiar sting of anger, the lingering bitterness of betrayal, but also, overwhelmingly, something entirely new. Relief. I set my phone down, sinking into the cushions of the couch, feeling a colossal weight lift off my shoulders, a weight I had carried for far too long, mistaking it for obligation or love. That night, sleep was elusive. I lay awake, replaying the past years in my head. The vacations I had turned down to cover their mortgage. The late nights working overtime to send Ethan tuition money. The sacrifices I had made believing they mattered. Believing they saw me. Believed they appreciated me. But now that I needed just 1 ounce of recognition, one sign that I was valued not for my money but for myself, they couldn't even give me that. The pain was still there, a dull ache, but the crippling weight of expectation was gone. I was finally free from the burden of trying to buy a place in a family that had already written me out. The relief I felt after canceling those automatic transfers was immense, a physical lightness I hadn't realized I was missing. But I knew it was only temporary. The storm I had unleashed by cutting the financial cord was just beginning. The next morning, my phone rang non-stop, a relentless buzzing that filled my apartment. I didn't even need to check the screen to know who it was. After letting it ring for a long moment, preparing myself, I finally picked up. Mom's voice, Linda, burst through the speaker before I could even say hello, a mixture of anger and desperation. "Olivia, what are you thinking?" she nearly shouted. "Why? Why did you cancel the payments? You know we need that money to cover the bills." I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply, grounding myself. "Mom," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I can't do this anymore. I've helped enough." "Helped?" she scoffed, the anger escalating. "You're abandoning your family. Have you even thought about how this affects us? We sacrifice so much for you, and this is how you repay us?" I let out a dry chuckle, devoid of any humor. "Sacrificed? Do you not see the irony in that, Mom? If I owe you for raising me, haven't I already paid you back by funding this entire family for the last decade?" She hesitated, but then her voice turned sharper, colder. "You've changed, Olivia. You let money control you." "No, Mom," I replied, my voice surprisingly calm. "You let money control you. But I'm not your personal bank anymore. She exhaled loudly, a sound of pure frustration and disbelief, and hung up without another word. I stared at the screen, the silence in the apartment feeling foreign after her outburst. Then more messages flashed across the screen. Ethan, you're ungrateful. Mom's crying because of you. Sam, you think you're so smart. You'll regret this one day. Ethan again, crueler. Don't bother showing up at our parents' funeral when they're gone. I read each message, anger bubbling beneath my skin, not just at the insults, but at the complete lack of self-awareness. Not one apology for the will, not one question about why I had really done it. They didn't care how they had treated me. They were just mad because I had stopped funding their lives. The phone rang again. Dad Charles this time. I let it ring. It kept ringing. I finally turned off the ringer, went into my settings, and one by one, silenced or blocked their numbers. Mom, Dad, Ethan, Sam. Once I was done, I set my phone down, closed my eyes, and exhaled. Silence filled my apartment, a rare and unfamiliar peace. No more ringing, no more messages filled with guilt trips or manipulation. I stepped onto my balcony, breathing in the crisp morning air. This peace felt fragile, but also incredibly freeing. For the first time in years, I was truly free from their constant demands. 3 weeks passed in this new, quiet reality. No more relentless calls, no more guilt-laden messages from Mom. I began to hope they had finally accepted the truth, that I was no longer their financial safety net. I channeled my energy into work, throwing myself into a major project, finding focus I hadn't had in years now that the constant low-level stress of their dependency was gone. Then, on a Friday evening, a message appeared on my screen from an unfamiliar number. A sinking sensation formed in my chest. Family meeting tomorrow at 7 p.m. Don't be late. Short, cold, no explanation, but I knew instantly who it was from. A part of me wanted to ignore it, but another part, smaller yet persistent, whispered that maybe, just maybe, after everything that had happened, they truly wanted to have an honest conversation. Foolishly, I decided to go. As I stepped into my parents' house, the tension in the living room was suffocating. Ethan and Sam were already seated on the couch, arms crossed, their expressions cold and unwelcoming. My father stood near the fireplace, while my mother sat in an armchair, her eyes red and puffy, clearly having been crying. Before I could speak, my mother's voice, trembling with what sounded like pain, but I knew was manipulation, broke the silence. Olivia, I don't understand you anymore. How much further do you want to go in destroying this family? I frowned. What are you talking about? My father let out a heavy sigh. You've put us in serious financial trouble. If you keep being stubborn, your mother is going to break down. I laughed, but there was no humor in it, only bitter irony. So now I'm the reason Mom is exhausted? What about all those years I carried this family financially? She seemed just fine then. Ethan scoffed, shaking his head. You always make everything about money. Do you really think the world revolves around you? Sam leaned forward, arms crossed in defiance. Come on, he said, his voice laced with accusation. You have a good job, a comfortable life. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? You're just paying the price for being selfish. Their words cut deep, not because they were true, but because they confirmed that nothing had changed. I had come here hoping for a genuine conversation, a glimmer of understanding, but all I was met with was manipulation, blame, and pressure to revert to my role as their ATM. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. If this is why you called me here, I said, my voice calm and firm, rising above their accusations, then don't waste your time. I'm not coming back. My mother's face went blank, her carefully constructed facade cracking. What did you just say? I stood up, taking one last look around the house, the scene of so many unappreciated sacrifices, and the final, devastating betrayal. I have done everything I could to be a part of this family, I said, my voice filled with a quiet finality. But if my worth to you is only measured by how much money I bring in, then I don't need that kind of love. No one said a word as I turned and walked toward the door. No one stopped me. I left for good this time, walking out of that house and out of their lives for the last time. 2 days later, returning to my apartment late at night, I immediately sensed something was wrong. My front door had been sealed shut with industrial foam covering the door frame and handle. I reached out and touched the hardened material. Solid, cold, deliberate. Someone had done this on purpose. I took a step back, my heartbeat pounding. This wasn't a prank. It was a malicious, intentional act to keep me out of my own home. Without hesitation, I grabbed my phone and checked the hallway security camera footage. I fast-forwarded through the evening, and there it was. Sam. Wearing a baseball cap and a hoodie, but his posture and stride were unmistakable. He smirked as he held the foam spray can, carefully filling every crack and crevice of my door. My hands trembled with rage, but my mind was clear. This wasn't just anger. This was an escalation. I didn't hesitate. I called the police. When the officers arrived, I handed over the footage. One of them nodded gravely as he watched the video. "Do you want to press charges?" he asked. I gripped my phone tightly, a chill running down my spine. If I let this go, it would only escalate further. Sam wasn't just angry. He was willing to cross a dangerous line to retaliate. I took a deep breath, my gaze firm. "Yes," I said. "I want him held accountable." The next day, my phone rang again. I ignored it. Dad, then Ethan. Finally, I picked up Dad's call. "Olivia." His voice was harsh, accusatory. "Your brother got called in by the police. How could you do this to your own family?" I responded calmly, the anger now a cold reservoir inside me. "Sam vandalized my property. If he doesn't want to face charges, he needs to pay for the damages." My father's tone dropped, shifting instantly to negotiation. "How much?" I didn't hesitate. $3,000. "How could you extort your own brother like this?" he exploded. I let out a dry chuckle. "It's not extortion, Dad. It's called consequences." The next morning, $3,000 appeared in my account with a bitter note attached. "I never want to see you again." I read the message and felt nothing. Just then, another notification lit up my phone. A message from a distant relative. "Olivia, is this true? People are saying you abandoned your family even though they're struggling." Another message came in. "How could you cut off your parents and brothers like this? They took care of you your whole life." I opened social media and immediately understood what was happening. My mother had been spreading a completely false story. She had written a long public post claiming I had turned my back on my family in their time of need, that I was selfish and only cared about myself, leaving my aging parents and struggling brothers with nothing after benefiting from their care. People who didn't know the full story flooded the comments, offering sympathy to her and vilifying me. "So sad when successful children forget where they came from," one read. "Parents sacrifice everything for their kids, and this is the thanks they get," read another. "Olivia must have let money get to her head." Anger flared in my chest, not because of the stranger's judgment, but because my own family, the people who were supposed to love me, had actively rewritten the narrative, twisting the truth to turn me into the villain. They didn't mention my decade of financial support. They didn't mention the will that cut me out. They left out that Sam vandalized my apartment, and I had to call the police to protect myself. They only painted the image of a heartless daughter who abandoned her family. I sat in silence for a few minutes, contemplating. Should I stay quiet? Let them control the narrative? No. I had endured their manipulation for far too long. This time, I wouldn't let them define me or my story. I opened my social media app and tapped on Create Post. If my family wants to make this public, I thought, then let me tell the truth. And I started writing, laying it all out. Every dollar I had sent over the past 10 years, the money to help them keep their house, pay for tuition, even the funds Ethan and Sam used for new cars and vacations. I spoke about how they had always seen me as an ATM, not a daughter or a sister. I exposed the will, the deliberate act of cutting me out despite my support. I detailed how Sam had sealed my apartment door with industrial foam, forcing me to involve the police. I didn't turn my back on my family, I wrote. My family never saw me as part of them, unless I was bringing in money. And now I choose to stand up for myself. I hit post. The truth was out there, for better or worse. My public post caused an uproar, instantly shifting the narrative. Relatives started asking questions. Some commented on my mother's earlier post, surprised and questioning why they'd never heard these things before. An aunt messaged me privately, confirming she had always suspected something was off, and asking if it was true that I had financially supported the family for years. Some extended family members even began gently calling out my mother for twisting the truth online. But the strongest reaction, the final, definitive one, came from my immediate family. "Mom!" Linda called immediately, her voice so furious she was nearly incoherent. "Olivia, what the hell did you just do?" she screamed. "You're humiliating this family. Your father is so ashamed he won't even leave the house. Have you thought about how this makes Ethan and Sam feel?" I remained calm, the anger from before now a cold, steady force. "Mom," I said, my voice even, "I told the truth. If you have the right to tell your version, so do I." "You're destroying this family!" Her voice grew colder, harder. "If you do this, don't expect to come back. We are no longer family." I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. "Mom," I said, the words heavy with finality. "You destroyed this family, not me." And I hung up. There were no tears, no regret. For the first time in my life, I felt a profound sense of relief. I had lost my family, but maybe, just maybe, they were never truly my family to begin with. At least, not in the way that mattered. That phone call with my mother was the last time I heard her voice. After my post, my immediate family went completely silent. No more angry messages from Ethan, no more furious calls from Dad, Charles, no more manipulative texts from Mom. All contact was severed, as if I had never existed to them. But this time, I didn't feel guilty. I was free. At first, the silence felt unfamiliar. The evenings I used to spend solving my family's financial problems were now entirely mine. No more desperate late-night calls, no more canceled plans because someone needed my help. I channeled that freed-up energy into my work, tackling a major project with laser focus. I not only completed it ahead of schedule, but also secured a significant promotion, standing in my new office, looking out over the city, feeling proud for the first time in my life, to enjoy my success without feeling obligated to share it with anyone who hadn't earned a stake in it. And then, I decided to travel. It was something I had always dreamed of, taking a long trip, exploring a new part of the world. But every time I thought about spending money on myself, I was pulled back into the sense of financial responsibility towards my family. But now, nothing was holding me back. I booked a ticket to Italy. When the plane landed in Florence, I felt like I was stepping into an entirely new world, one vibrant and alive, filled with history and beauty. The cobblestone streets, the outdoor cafes spilling onto sidewalks with the scent of espresso, the historic buildings whispering stories of the past, it all made me feel more alive, more present than ever before. I wandered through Florence's narrow alleyways, spent hours in museums marveling at Renaissance paintings I had only seen in books, ate the freshest pasta of my life, and sipped rich red wine as the sun set over the terracotta rooftops. I was no longer the person who constantly worried about others' bills or navigated their financial crises. I was no longer my family's bank account. I was just me, Olivia, experiencing the world. One late afternoon, sitting in a small cafe near Piazza della Signoria, enjoying a hot cappuccino, a stranger approached me. "You seem to really like this place," he said with a warm gaze and a relaxed smile. "I think I just fell in love with this city," I replied, smiling back. He pulled up a chair and sat across from me, effortlessly as if we had known each other for years. "Me too," he said. "This is my third time coming back. My name's Alex." We talked for a long time. He was from New York, worked in interior design, and had a deep passion for European architecture. His voice was calm, steady, sometimes laced with easy humor. I couldn't remember the last time I had talked to someone without pressure, without tension, without the underlying weight of obligation. With Alex, there was no pretense, no expectations, just a simple encounter, a genuine connection between two strangers. As I stood up to leave, he smiled. "If you ever want company while exploring Florence, I'd be happy to join you." I hesitated for only a second before nodding. "I think I'd like that." The next few days felt like a dream. Alex and I wandered through local markets, sampled gelato, and walked along the Arno River as the golden sunset painted the sky. He didn't ask about my family. He didn't probe into my past. He just saw me for who I was in that moment, a woman finally embracing her freedom. For the first time in my life, I felt valued, not for my money, not for my responsibilities, but just for being me. After returning from Italy, I stepped back into my life in the US with an entirely new mindset. I was no longer the Olivia who sacrificed everything for a family that never appreciated her. I was stronger, freer, and more myself than ever before. The months that followed were peaceful. Work thrived. I joined Sunday yoga classes, met new friends, and finally embraced the life I had put on hold for too long. Though my immediate family remained silent, indirect news surfaced through distant relatives. I heard about my parents struggling financially, Dad working night shifts, Mom taking cleaning jobs. Ethan had lost his job, and Sam was still chasing an elusive social media career. I had seen this coming. They had never learned independence because I was always there. I felt no responsibility, only a quiet acknowledgement that they were facing the consequences of their own reliance. I had people who truly cared about me now, friends, supportive aunts like Carol, who had reached out after my post. I decided to host a small holiday gathering at my apartment. My apartment filled with warmth, laughter, and genuine connection. I laughed more than in any previous holiday. No forced conversations, no pressure to meet anyone's expectations. Just me, being happy on my own terms. As I stood on my balcony that night, gazing at the city lights, I felt something profound. No more invisible burdens, no more feeling used, just me, my life, and the people who truly loved me for who I was. I sat in my armchair, watching the city lights reflect against my window. Inside me, there was a stillness I had never known before. I had once believed that family was everything, that I had an obligation to sacrifice for them no matter how they treated me. But the truth had been far different. Family isn't defined by blood alone. Family is made up of those who appreciate you, those who don't take advantage of you, those who love you without conditions. My parents, Ethan and Sam, they had never truly seen me as family in that way. They believed cutting me out of the will and leaving me with nothing would break me, that I would beg for their acceptance again. But what they didn't realize was that they had unknowingly given me the greatest gift of all. They had severed the last remaining tie between us. They had set me free. I had once been burdened by expectations and sacrifices that were never appreciated, but now I had the power to choose my own life. I could go anywhere, do anything, and never again worry about a call demanding money or a guilt trip. I could spend my time with people who truly loved me, friends who stood by me even when I had nothing left to give, extended family who had quietly supported me all along. I could love and be loved freely in a way I had never experienced before. My eyes drifted to my phone on the table. There were no missed calls from my immediate family. They had let me go. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of that. I picked up my glass of wine, taking a slow sip, letting its warmth spread through me. I had once lived for my family. Now I chose to live for myself. And that wasn't selfish. That was freedom. Olivia's story isn't just personal. It reflects a reality many face. We believe family is safest, that love comes with responsibility. But sometimes walking away isn't selfish. It's the only way to protect yourself when you are constantly used. When your sacrifices go unrecognized, you have every right to put yourself first, because in the end, this life is yours. If you were in her position, would you keep sacrificing or walk away to find yourself? Share your thoughts below and follow Life Stories 1 for more meaningful stories about life and family. Olivia's story isn't just personal, it reflects a reality that many people face in society. We grow up believing that family is the safest place, that love always comes with responsibility. But the truth is, family bonds don't always mean appreciation. Sometimes walking away isn't selfish. It's the only way to protect yourself. When you are constantly being used, when your sacrifices go unrecognized, you have every right to put yourself first, because in the end, this life is yours. What do you think about Olivia's story? If you were in her position, would you keep sacrificing for family, or would you walk away to find yourself again? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel Life Stories so you don't miss more meaningful stories about life and family.